kids, welcome back to another 5-minute Bible story. Today we're going to continue to talk about our hands. Last week we talked about God's hands and how he demonstrates his creativity, his love, and his power with the use of his hands. Today we're going to talk about how God can use what's in our hands. Sometimes we have tools to accomplish a task. God can use those tools to do what he needs done through us and through the use of our hands. Let's see what our story is about today. So today I'm going to teach you a little game that we can play with our hands. It's going to require you to have someone with you and find some random objects, and you're going to have to close your eyes or maybe wear a blindfold, and you're going to close your eyes or wear that blindfold, and they're going to put something in your hand. You have 10 seconds to try to feel it and try to figure out what is in your hands. And then at the end of the 10 seconds, you have to try to guess what it is. If you get it right, awesome, you get a point, and you can switch turns with whoever you're playing with, or maybe you can just do it for fun, however you want to do it. But did you know that our fingers are really sensitive, and we can tell the difference between materials, we can tell the difference between textures, and we can tell the difference between liquids and solids. So our fingers, there's actually a scientist who said if our fingertip was the size of the moon, and we were to touch the earth, we would be able to tell the difference between houses, cars, people, trees, animals. Our fingertips are so sensitive that we can tell very, 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 very small differences on surfaces. That's really cool. God really made our hands really awesome and pretty unique. So for our story today, we're going to be in the book of Exodus, chapter 4. We're going to talk about a guy named Moses. We've talked about him before, but today we're going to talk about him a little bit differently and how he used his hands to serve God. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, though. Way back when, thousands of years ago, there was a guy named Pharaoh who lived in the country of Egypt, and he was the guy who was in charge of the entire country, and they had lots and lots of slaves, and these slaves were the Israelites. Those are God's people, the people that God chose, and they came from Abraham, and there's a long of descendants, and eventually came Moses. But Pharaoh didn't like the Israelites because they were growing so big. There were more Israelites than there were Egyptians. So Pharaoh was like, you need to take all the babies and you need to throw them into the river. We can't have this many babies. They're going to be more people than us, and we can't handle that. But Moses' mom loved him very much and didn't want him to get thrown into the river. So she put him in a basket and she sent him down the river. And it's actually funny, he was found by the daughter of Pharaoh and was raised in Pharaoh's house as a child of the daughter of Pharaoh. So it's kind of cool how God used something that was really, really awful to get someone like Moses to be in a position of power. Moses didn't always do the right thing. He didn't always have the right answers. And he ended up actually doing something really bad, and he had to run away from Egypt. And he lived out in the wilderness for about 40 years, and he was a shepherd. And God came to him in a really weird way. He came to him as a burning bush. Like if you go outside and you have like small bushes outside, imagine that, but imagine that it's completely on fire, but the leaves aren't burning, the sticks aren't burning, and nothing's actually wrong with it. It's just on fire. That's how the Bible described that God came to Moses and decided to talk to him. And Moses was just like, oh my goodness, this is God. God said, take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground. So Moses took off his shoes and he fell on his face and he's like, God, like, what do you want from me? And God was like, Moses, I have a plan for you. You're going to go back to Egypt and you're going to help free my people from the Egyptians and take them into their promised land. And Moses was like, how am I going to do this? And God said, Moses, what's in your hand? And Moses looked, he's like, this is my staff. I use this staff for when I'm herding my sheep. And God said, throw it on the ground. Moses threw the staff on the ground, and it immediately turned into a snake. I'm not a big snake guy, so if I threw a stick on the ground and turned into a snake, I would just bolt and run the other direction. But I guess if God was there, I'd feel a little bit more safe, so maybe I wouldn't. But Moses didn't run. He saw the snake, and he was just like filled with awe. And God said, now pick it up by its tail. So Moses bent down, and he picked it up by his tail, and it turned back into his staff. Then God said, now put your hand in your robe. So Moses was like, okay, I saw one thing. I might as well keep going. So he put his hand in his robe and he pulled it back out, and his hand was sick. It was covered with leprosy, which was like a rash that would like eat and kill the skin on your body, and it would make you look really gross. And leprosy was considered to be something that was unclean, so people would avoid people with leprosy. But God and Moses put his hand back in his robe, pulled it back out, and he was healthy again. And he even told him, like, take some water from the Nile, and if they don't believe that I'm the one who sent you, pour it on the ground, and it'll turn into blood in front of their eyes. And Moses, you know what? After all that, Moses was still like, I have some excuses that I can't do this. He's like, I don't talk very good, so I can't do this. And God was like, you know what? I'll help you talk, and I'll teach you what you need to say. And he provided Moses' brother-in-law, Aaron, to go with him to help talk for him and help get God's message across. Sometimes, even though we've seen some amazing things and God has provided for us in so many ways, He's given us tools to do everything He's asked. Sometimes we still come up with excuses and say, God, we can't do this because of this. Or, God, I can't do this because I can't speak good. God, I can't do this. I'm not tall enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. But you know what? God always answers and said, you might not be able to do that by yourself, but I have something for you that's going to be the right tool for the job, and it's going to help you get the job done. All you need to do is use your hands and go where I send you. So that's the challenge for today. Moses had to use the tools that God gave him in his hands to go and help rescue his people from Egypt, which he ended up doing. He went and did all the things God said, and after 10 more plagues, because the Pharaoh was like, no, I don't care that God sent you. You know, these are my people. 10 more plagues happened to them, and finally the Pharaoh was like, you can go. And Moses did some amazing things with the help of God, and God used Moses to accomplish great miracles because he was willing to use his hands and what were in his hands. So that's the end of our story for today, and that brings us to one of my favorite new segments that we've been doing recently. On the wall behind me, something has changed. So I want you to look right now and figure out, what's the difference? What has changed? Something has either been moved, replaced, or taken away altogether. Find out what it is, comment down below, and let me know what is the difference. So that brings us to the end of this week's video. Just letting you know, last week we started our first in-person service, and we are continuing that. We are doing one right now. If you're watching this video, we're going to be doing one today. We'll be doing one next week, and we're going to be doing it for a few more weeks. In-person outdoor services. We had a really good time last week. You might have seen me there. If you were there, awesome. I loved seeing all the kids that came. And if you aren't quite comfortable to be there yet, don't worry. We're still going to continue to do our 5-minute Bible stories. But if you do come, make sure that you bring a mask. We're going to keep our faces covered just to help keep germs from spreading. I made a video last week if you want to go back and take a look at that on why we wear masks and how it stops the spread of germs. So if you show up, make sure to bring your favorite, most cool mask that you have and show it off to us in person. But I look forward to seeing you next week in another 5-minute Bible story. Bye, kids.